So I will present our contribution promoting social inclusion in vocational training students with disabilities and inclusive experience of museum education. I'm Mara Valente, and I am PhD candidate from the Department of Education at Roma Tre University, and online there is my colleague Maria Rosaria Re, research fellow at same department of University of Roma Tre. So we are discussing about the role of museum in social inclusion that is built by imagining the museum as a place of education. When each social group succeed in interacting with museum and developing skills such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and interpreting information. As the Council of Europe has emphasized, soliciting cross-sectional skills in a democratic cultural context improve the well-being of pupils and individuals, which implies being active, responsible, connected, resilient, value, respected, and conscious. So, to promote social cohesion and economic growth by reducing the gap between rich and poor, it is necessary to promote a people-centered approach to heritage that benefits all levels of society. When people get involved, in fact, learn, value, and promote their cultural heritage, they can contribute to social and economic development of the communities they are part of. Starting from this assumption, the Center for Museum Study, based at Department of Education of the University of Roma Tre, planned and implemented the pilot activity today described within the Inclusive Memory Project. The research questions linked to this pilot activity are the following. What kind of emotional and affective experience characterize the students involved in the experience? Is there a relationship between object-based learning and digital storytelling activities and forces skills promotion? If yes, how is it configured in relation to social inclusion? Is there a relationship between forces skills and well-being development? If yes, how is it configured? And the experience today presented is one of the main educational activities stemming from the theoretical framework of the Inclusive Memory Project. The Inclusive Memory Project, founded by University of Roma Tre, fosters the construction of a shared and collective social memory through an inclusive system within the museum. The core of this project is a close connection between new teaching methodologies and the implementation of digital tools to encourage the development of transverse competencies at all museum users' disposal. So, thanks to the strong cooperation between university, research institute, and the museum educational department, the project aimed at creating educational paths to promote social inclusion and well-being, especially in democratic terms within the museum user. This regard, the main purpose of the pilot experience is to combine the practice of innovative teaching methods and the digital resources in museum education setting to stimulate the development of transverse skills, social inclusion, and well-being within people with cognitive disabilities. And the general goals of the learning experience described are goal number one, to perceive and implement innovative, personalized, and adaptive museum learning paths efforts to soliciting social integration of the target group. The goal number two, to project and implement workshop in museum context directed at students with cognitive spatial needs from one of the vocational training centers of Municipality of Rome. The goal number three, to enhance transfer skill within workshop participants, especially communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity. And then goal number four, to design and produce digital products that record the experience and promote the creation of common and shared memory through the digital storytelling strategy. The specific expected results are linked to an increase in emotional well-being, a sense of belonging to a community, and digital and basic skills development. The achievement of the pilot experience is pushed through the adoption of object-based learning and digital storytelling as innovative learning methodologies. Object-based learning is an active methodology to learn and a social constructivist approach that offer a tactile experience for learners, which challenges them to interrogate the object and conceptualize their thinking. During an object-based learning session, participants, in fact, are asked to touch, handle, probe, and explore the exhibit or its 3D printed copy. The exploratory investigation brings into play a series of skills and competencies that foster learning. Among these, especially observation and analysis skills, metacognition, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving abilities are incentivized. And also, it has proved to be a very useful strategy to engage students who have learning or relational difficulty with their peers or teacher, as it stimulates the development of transverse skills, and more generally it makes it possible to reach a condition of emotional well-being using their previous knowledge. The second learning strategy we have are storytelling and digital storytelling. Storytelling is a learning strategy through which people can express, understand, and articulate everyday experience. Thanks to this process, personas can link with the world around them and recognize different kinds of stories. Therefore, digital storytelling is not only a way to expand the digital abilities, but above all, a learning method to break down barriers and increase understanding between generation, ethnic groups, and groups in a variety of ways. And in addition, digital storytelling is a powerful means of personal and creative expression, giving groups of people who are normally excluded from culture the opportunity to see and hear, and fostering the self-confidence needed to escape social exclusion and access, giving new opportunities that help improve the self-esteem and self-confidence needed to advance in life. Specific research in the field, in fact, has also confirmed it in the inclusive perspective of the digital storytelling that this methodology is a powerful process for co-creation, as it allows marginalized people to script, film, and create videos of their own stories with support from an expert facilitator. In addition, digital storytelling has been tested to be an effective methodology to support the storytelling to process their mental health issue. So the pilot experience was carried out in May 2019 with participation of 6 students with mental disabilities of a vocational training center of Rome. The museum selected for the realization of the pilot phase is the National Etruscan Museum of Villa Giulia in Rome. 4 educators from Center for Museum Studies and archaeologists designed and implemented the pilot experience, which was realized with the support of one teacher from the Vocational Training Center. And the pilot activity was organized in two meetings, each of which focused on a specific learning methodology. And different evaluation activities were carried out before and after the pilot experience, and the two meetings lasted for 4 hours each. So, during the first meeting, participants were introduced to museum with a brief explanation of Villa Giulia main building and garden history. The timeline of the activity was also introduced by the educators and participants took part in the first well-being evaluation activity. During the object-based learning workshop, one participant engaged in manipulation activities to describe the assigned archaeological object to other participants in a pair activity. Then the participants were engaged all together in the interpretation of the museum object used during the object-based learning experience, through the support of an archaeologist. During the second meeting, the participants visited some rooms of Villa Giulia Museum with the support of an archaeologist and two museum educators. The exhibition of the museum was introduced together with the most popular type of museum objects. A selected museum object, Medea Regimentas Jason with a spell, an Etruscan Alpe, was collaboratively analyzed by participants through the support of narrative texts selected for the experiences. And after that, in the museum education room, the digital storytelling workshop started, and the participants were involved in different activities. Creation and realization of story in a group inspired by the Etruscan Alpe, recording of the story with support of a recorder, realization of the video through the use of personal computer, share of the video made with teacher and educators. The experience ended with a well-being outgoing evaluation activity. So, Maria Rosaria, please.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you so much for your presentation. Yes, it's time now to go deeper around the analysis of the results of our activity. Just to summarize, we did content analysis on the workshop done regarding the object-based learning methodology, and the second regarding the digital storytelling one, but today we will present only the results from the first workshop, so the object-based learning workshop. Why we decided to do a content analysis? Because we recorded all the interaction that students had each other during the workshop, trying to figure out what are the main characteristics and the main soft skills and well-being attitudes that could be presented, that could be presented at the main stage by our students. The idea is that through this content analysis, we can underline maybe the link between well-being and the development of 4C skills or soft skills in general, and think about also the possibility to link specific contents related to our museum used for the experience and the main learning objectives that Mara presented before. So the content analysis was carried on by a software, atlas.ai, and the following categories that you can find in this table have been provided to the content analysis software in order to analyze the presence or not of particular categories during the communication or interaction activity. First of all, we decided to evaluate the affective states, so the well-being in general, the positive well-being with the codes interested, lively, motivated, positive, talkative, and friendly, and the negative well-being with the categories of distress, irritable, nervous, scared, and happy and upset. Why this particular definition of the code positive and negative well-being? Because we are now referring with this particular category to the positive and negative well-being in museum education contest, validated by Thompson and Chatterjee in 2013. Through a particular assessment tool that are the well-being umbrellas. The well-being umbrellas are an evaluation tools that used a sort of Likert scale that could be used by participants in museum education experience to indicate the level of well-being, a positive or negative one, during the experience itself. The same contents, the same definition of well-being is used in our content analysis, because our students also use the umbrellas from Thompson and Chatterjee during the experimental experience. Moreover, the second category is the 4C skills. So, taking into consideration the main goals of our experience, we decided to evaluate if communication, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration were promoted during the object-based learning workshop. As you can see in this table, communication is considered the competencies, the ability to interact with others, and also in an appropriate and a creative way. So to be part of a particular social context and take also leisure from a particular experience. The main important references that can be related to communication definition are from a book of Antonella Poce, Memory, Inclusion and Cultural Heritage, but especially the one related to cultural heritage and development of 21st century skills of 2018. Moreover, communication is considered and is defined as the ability to work together towards a common goal, and this definition is from Griffin and Care, and a process, moreover, that leads to the actual achievement of desired individuals and group outcomes, and this is a definition by Kuhn. So much linked, that's much near the definition of critical thinking. Critical thinking is defined in our content analysis as the ability to make a well-founded and a self-regulated judgment regarding a particular, for example, interpretation of a museum object, to analyze in a coherent and a clear way the object, to evaluate our judgment and to create some inferences. The main bibliographical references that we can cite, taking into consideration this particular definition, are for sure Faccione, with the critical thinking study carried on by the American Psychological Association, but also Annis and another work of Poce called Nomina sunt consequentia rerum, in which critical thinking is defined is defined as a soft skills validated through a specific assessment grid for students of high schools that are the same participants of our experimentation. Moreover, in this table, you can see also the content. So also the content were evaluated through our content analysis. We are talking about specific elements like history, ancient civilization, Renaissance architecture, the technical and the stylistic and functional aspect that students underlined and saw through our museum objects. So all the contents related to the Etruscan museum object they used during the workshop. Next slide, please, Mara. But how this content analysis was done? The meetings were recorded and then transcribed by educators, by different educators. The transcriptions were divided into units of meanings, and then they were codified through the content analysis software Atlas. This allowed us to carry out a particular analysis, that is the analysis of frequencies of the categories emerged during the discussion, during the activities, and also the analysis of the co-occurrences of these interactions. That should be so much useful to identify, for example, the coexistence of different emotional states and forces skills, or positive well-being and specific contents to the Etruscan Museum collection. So the idea is that this procedure, this content analysis, produce results in terms of percentage, because we are now talking about frequencies and not about only the only six participants that participated in our experimentation. So this is why we can see percentage in our analysis. It's important also to underline that the codes are representative of group dynamics, so are not elements that we can link to individual attitudes or individual activities. This is so much linked to the idea of workshop in which students interact each others and also with the educators, with the archaeologists. So the idea is that these results are completely close to the interaction, to the group results of in terms of communication, and not to specific individuals participating in the experience. By the way, these are the first results from the object-based learning workshop. As you can see from a very general overview, the data analysis shows that participants express a very high level of positive emotions, so the positive well-being, with a percentage of 28.26. There are no negative well-being frequencies, and this is also a very good result. And between the taking into consideration the forces skills, the communication skills is the most representative one, following by the critical thinking one. As regards contents, the idea and all the technical aspect related to ceramic, and so the technical aspect related to the object we choose for our experience are the contents that are so much are more representative in the content analysis, followed by the ancient civilization, so how Etruscans lived in the past, on how was the Etruscan society, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please, Mara. We thought about the idea of well-being, the positive well-being, in order to understand in particular which emotions were reported by the students participating in the activity. We analyzed the frequencies of the categories of the positive well-being that we carried out. So the high level, as you can see here, of positive emotions are mainly related to interest, with the 15%, and loquacity, and friendliness. So the first three, friendly, interested, talkative adjectives, are the main representative in terms of positive well-being. Next slide, please, Mara. Students' interest in the activity is confirmed by the observation made by the researchers during the pilot experience. In table 4, we can see the co-occurrences between positive well-being and the other categories under analysis. As you can see, the interest, so the most important positive well-being element, is motivated by the possibility of communicating with others for the 42% of occurrences, so of case, and also by the characteristic of museum objects for the 27% of the cases. So the interest is so much involved when, during the object-based learning workshop, there were the possibility to communicate about the object with the other participant, and also especially communicating regarding the technical elements of the object itself. So the technical stylist, or the functional aspect, or how this object could be used in the past. So it's so much important these days, because it's through this analysis we can underline the efficacy of object-based learning in terms of interest, and also in terms of communication. Moreover, this data underlines that group discussion and object-based and hands-on manipulation in general promotes actively the participants, and also produce a learning experience in which they are completely stimulated. From the table, we can see also a good number of co-occurrences that are found in the link between interest and critical thinking. So critical thinking is promoted, is much more promoted where interest is evident. And this is completely in line with the literature references, because curiosity is one of the main attitudes that promotes critical thinking. It's a very necessary mental disposition for a good critical thinker, and this results it's so much in line with this literature in the field. Next slide, please, Mara. The student in general interact each other, but interact so much with the mediators. An analysis of the co-occurrences between transverse competencies show that the 22% of the cases, learners demonstrate that they stimulate critical thinking through communication, but this communication is carried out mainly with the mediators. So the workshop was for sure promoted for sure interest in our participants, but maybe in the future it should be useful to promote a real communication between participants more than a communication with the mediators or the archaeologists or the educators in general. But in the same time, this data highlights how the questions posed by the researchers and the organized activities are important for the workshops, and also are effective in terms of critical thinking stimulation. So in the meantime, the presence of moderator is so much effective in terms of critical thinking development. Next slide, please, Mara. So just to summarize and to conclude our presentation, this is a very pilot experience conducted at the National Etruscan Museum of Villa Giulia before the COVID pandemic. The main important characteristic is that a vocational training center participated in this experience, where a vocational training center devoted to people with disabilities, especially people with cognitive disability. So the idea, taking into consideration also the inclusive theme of this track, is that especially museum education, can realize effective learning experience in which FOSI skills are promoted and in which also social inclusion is guaranteed. The pilot experience was analyzed also in terms of well-being, and we have a lot of literature in the field that underlines how museum education, how museum objects can really give a support in the development of well-being. And as Antonella Poce underlines this modeling, well-being in a social context means education, means be part of a local community and also be part of the economic growth of a local entities. So the experience underlines these needs in terms of social context and economic context, except for the learning one, that is the more important for sure. The first results show that transverse skills and positive well-being are stimulated. Museum collection and activities promoted participants to be friendly, to be talkative, especially with the mediators. So the pilot experience promote communication and promote critical thinking skills within the students. For sure, there are cons about our experience. The small number of participants and the way in which the experience was carried out do not allow for sure generalization, but the results give us the indication in terms of future experience, in terms of active learning strategies that are useful for museum education context and for people with cognitive disabilities, and also in terms of social inclusion for sure. So in terms of future research, we should include a large number of participants and carry out also activities in different museum contexts to test also if the degree of promotion of transverse competencies and well-being is different in different museum education contexts and with a large, for example, number of participants at the activity. That's all. So thank you very much for your attention. Thanks, Mara, and thanks to all the attendees, also the archaeologists who take part in our experimentation is attending this track, Eliana Maria Torres. So a big thank you also to Eliana.
Yeah. Yes, Maria, if you don't mind, actually, I have a question. I
Oh,
just
please,
curious.
Fan.
Yeah, I just curious when the children go to the museum, what they particularly do in this program. Like, do the teacher may introduce some background information about the exhibition, or what they do? I just curious, like because it's really meaningful project, definitely. Thank you.
No, there was no introduction by the teachers because, yeah, they know for sure the Etruscan period in terms of history because they are vocational training students over 18, so they are for sure aware about the contents, but no introduction to the museum and to the collection was done by the teachers. So the experience was completely done in museum context. But maybe in the future we can think about a sort of link, no, between a museum, a bigger museum education experience in which also school teachers could participate in the learning activities for sure. Thank you, Fan.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
the
Maria
conference.
Rosaria.
Thank you, Mara. Bye.
Bye.